There was a time when being yourself was simple. You woke up, got dressed, lived your day. You weren't thinking about how you looked in photos, or how your voice sounded in a video, or whether your breakfast was aesthetic enough to post. You simply were. Now things are different. Today we live our lives on stage. We perform, constantly. Not just actors or influencers, but all of us. In our profiles, our captions, our stories, our texts, our smiles. We've all become performers in the theater of the internet, and the question is no longer, who am I? But, who should I appear to be? This is the age of performance, and authenticity is dying. Let's pause and ask, what does it really mean to be authentic? Not just being real. That word has been hijacked, turned into a brand. Influencers cry on camera and call it authenticity. Brands tweet like teenagers and call it authenticity. Politicians drop their filters for 5 seconds and call it authenticity. But authenticity in its purest form means living in alignment with your inner truth, even when no one is watching, especially then. It means acting from the inside out, not the outside in. But today, we live outside in. We define ourselves by how others see us, by the likes, the views, the feedback. We become what gets attention. And slowly, imperceptibly, we begin to edit our personalities like we edit our photos. We crop out the doubts, we brighten the smiles, we smooth over the rough edges. Not because we're fake, but because we've learned that being polished is safer than being real. We are performing ourselves, and in doing so, we lose something sacred. The philosopher Jean Baudrillard once said that in postmodern society, we move from reality to simulation. That we no longer experience things directly, we experience representations of them. Images, impressions, performances. This is not just theory, this is life now. You don't just eat a meal, you post it. You don't just love someone, you display that love. You don't just exist, you curate yourself into a brand. This constant curation creates a subtle pressure to always be on, always be presentable, always be interesting. It's no longer enough to be alive. You have to be seen being alive. And the audience is always watching. Even if it's just a dozen followers, even if it's just your coworkers, even if it's just your own reflection on the screen. It's exhausting. But more than exhausting, it's eroding. Because the more we perform, the more we lose touch with what's underneath. The longer we pretend to be fine, the harder it becomes to admit when we're not. The more we perform confidence, the harder it becomes to express fear. The more we craft an identity for others, the more alien we feel in our own skin. And eventually, we forget the difference between performance and self. There's a term for this: emotional dissonance. It happens when what you feel inside doesn't match what you express outside. And it's incredibly common. We smile when we're sad. We act calm when we're anxious. We post joy when we feel empty. We wear masks not to deceive, but to protect ourselves. But every mask comes at a cost. The cost of connection, the cost of intimacy, the cost of truth. Because if I'm always performing and you're always performing, then who's really in the room? Who's really speaking? Who's really known? We long for realness, for someone to just say, I don't have it all together, for a friend who isn't always winning, for a moment that isn't filtered or staged. But we're afraid to go first. We're afraid of being misunderstood, of being judged, of being irrelevant. So we keep performing. And slowly, a strange thing happens. We become popular, but lonely. Visible, but unknown. Successful, but disconnected from ourselves. In 1943, psychologist Abraham Maslow published his famous hierarchy of needs. At the top of that pyramid was self-actualization, the full realization of one's potential and identity. But here's the paradox. You can't self-actualize if you don't know who you are, and you can't know who you are if you never stop performing. The performance drowns out the voice within, and yet, there is still a voice, buried beneath the noise, beneath the pressure, beneath the branding, a quieter voice, one that doesn't care about applause, one that doesn't need followers, one that speaks not in trends, but in truths. It's the voice that says, you don't need to be seen all the time. You don't need to please everyone. You don't need to prove your worth. It's your authentic self, and it's still there, waiting. So the question is, how do we return to it? How do we live authentically in a world that constantly asks us to perform? The answer is not easy, but it begins with courage. The courage to stop editing every moment. The courage to speak even when your voice shakes. The courage to disappoint people in order to stay true to yourself. Because not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will accept your unfiltered self. But authenticity isn't about being liked. It's about being real. And being real means being messy, complicated, evolving. It means telling the truth even when it's not popular.
It means choosing values over validation. It means letting go of who you think you should be, to make room for who you are. We also need silence. Yes, silence again. Because in silence, we remember what we sound like without the audience, without the algorithm, without the performance. In silence, we return to ourselves. We remember that life is not a brand. That meaning is not measured in metrics.
That love doesn't need to be posted to be real. In silence, we can breathe again. And that breath, unfiltered, unbranded, unperformed, is the first step back to authenticity. So next time you feel the impulse to perform, pause. Before you post, before you smile, before you say, I'm fine out of habit, ask yourself, is this really me? Or is this the version of me I think they want to see? And if it's not you, maybe you don't have to say it. Maybe you don't have to perform at all. Maybe you can just be. Quietly, honestly, imperfectly. Because in a world of endless performances, authenticity isn't weakness, it's rebellion. To be real is to be brave. To be real is to be free.